Welcome. You are at the CCC,
where there are no outside issues. Hi, my name is Bonnie Violet. I'm a trans femme, genderqueer, spiritual drag artist, digital chaplain, and person in recovery.
My name's Anthony. I'm a 7th-year doctoral student in clinical psych, an addict and alcoholic. I just had a delicious iced chai with oat milk, and I care about you.
Absolutely. And I'm Lulu, or Louie Lou, however you like to call me. Just don't call me Lou. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a former Miss Castro Country Club in recovery for alcohol and crystal meth. And I'm always in search of balance. I don't know why I get them all.
And each week we provide and create a brave space where we engage in conversations around topics of recovery.
And our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for people in recovery
by tackling topics often used to separate us.
But before we do that, like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, 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 ding. But before we go any further, the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on At the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The material and information shared here is for general information purposes only. In other words, we are just friends having a kiki here to entertain you.
Let's have a kiki.
Let's have a kiki.
Right.
You know, that would
lock the doors tight.
Be a nice sound effect. Let's have a kiki, and then we get started.
Oh. I wonder if we have to pay for that.
Yeah,
we would have to pay for the sound. I feel like really, Brandon? This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing.
That's a hate crime.
It certainly is a hate crime, and second to that is some news that we're sharing on air today.
Absolutely.
Bonnie Violet.
What news is that?
Girl, it's not my news to share, so that's
okay. Yeah, so I this will be my last episode as a host on the At the CCC podcast, which I'm really sad and have mixed feelings about. But I feel like, it's been almost in April, it'll be 2 years since I started as a host along with Lulu. And I think with my move and everything else that's going in life, I just need to take a little break. I'm going to still stay involved behind the scenes. But as far as like being in front of the camera or on the mic, I'm gonna take a step back, maybe pop in as a guest every now and again, but kind of take a step back.
This reminds me of the Supremes. Okay, Dinah Ross.
I'm gonna go start my solo career.
Don't fix my mic.
Bye Michelle, bye Kim.
The truth comes out. You've always thought you were the Beyonce. I knew it. This whole time. And I will. Who's the one? The one that everyone clowns on?
That would be
Michelle, right?
I almost said horchata.
Okay, horchata.
Because do y'all know what huaraches are? The huarache shoes?
No, I don't.
So they're these huaraches are like, they're these. They look almost biblical. They look like almost like a biblical sandal. And there's a meme out, and it's like all these fancy shoes, and then what's her name? Kelly? Is that her name?
Kelly is the middle one, and then Michelle.
Who's the one that everyone makes fun
of?
Michelle. So like all these fancy shoes, and then they have the huarache, and it says Michelle.
I'm just gonna go on record. It's like I was probably cracking on Michelle too, but I saw her. She played Sugar in the Color Purple when they came to town a long time ago. She's amazing. she has range, and she is a great singer. But I think that it's hard to kind of shine when you have a Beyonce in the group.
Yeah, I also feel like her. Speaking of social media, so today's topic today is social media, and of course, as usual, if you have any thoughts or anything comes up for you while we're chatting up here, please share in the comments. We always love to hear from you. Today's topic is social media in all of its many different forms, be it, I'm not going to say the names. Well, you have them all right here. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook Messenger, and then Twitter,
and
TikTok,
Christian Mingle.
Basically anything where you are able to connect with other human beings via a device.
Exactly.
Grindr,
Scruff, the sniffs, the sniffies.
The sniffs.
The sniffies. Should we say a little bit about how we're doing today before we go on?
I think we should.
Yeah.
Well, I'm good. It's like I am on vacation right now.
Are you?
Yeah, I started. Well, these are my normal days off, but I requested. I took PTO to balance. So I have 10 days. I have some time before I go to Hawaii later this week, and then have time when I come back. Because when you I want to have a few days to come down off of that like happiness and high. But I do want to talk about like really, really quick. I believe I was talking about before, like we talk about this idea of intersectionality, and I think we all have areas in our life that kind of intersect, and you can take all of those individual areas and kind of build additional community. And I was able to last week do that with a group of Black men in the program, and it was really nice. And it was not an effort to exclude; it was an effort to include and kind of inspire, to kind of support. And I'm going to encourage folks to always, anything that helps support you, that gives you that extra bit of kind of love and emotional kind of connection, reach for it, grab for it.
Yeah, that's really great.
I love to hear that.
Okay, I'm good.
You're good.
Bonnie Valley, were you going to say anything?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's my birthday. I'm 44 years old today. So
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. I'm not a singer.
But that's a Black and brown happy birthday.
Right? Hey, it works. I think that's like, we don't have to pay for that version.
No, I hope not.
It's not copyrighted.
But it is your birthday today. Your belly button birthday, yeah?
Yep, I'm 44, and I have a storytelling event this evening that seems like a nice cap for, I think moving to Idaho, starting this new part, turning 44. Yeah, I'm excited for this next year.
You're blossoming.
And how are you doing, Anthony? We want to make sure we ask you.
Yeah.
You're a piece of shit.
Wow.
I mean that with so much love.
Okay, I don't know how you could. Okay.
Yeah. I you know what? I should apologize.
Why are you?
I should apologize. Well, here, let me tell you why I should apologize.
You're being your authentic self.
I don't know. Hey, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Terry B says, "Happy birthday, Bonnie Violet." I am doing great. The reason why I just gave I do consulting work for the state. I share that only because today what was the joke? I look over and Brandon's laughing.
Terry said, "I'm here for you, not those two."
Yeah, that's fine, Terry. That is absolutely fine. We welcome everyone, including hateful people.
Love you,
including
in spite of you.
So this will be Terry's last time coming to the podcast. You should be nice.
Terry, thank you. Yeah, so I basically I gave a workshop today on basically like so kind of some of the stuff that I do off air is I do consulting work, and I help executive leadership teams become better leaders. And so my whole thing is I try to encourage leaders to bring their entire selves to work, right? Because we spend about a third of our lives at work, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I talked about, or like being driven by values, and one of the values I have is in creating community and connection, and being very careful about how I do that. And so I feel like when you make a joke like "you're full of shit," that's actually, although it may be funny on the surface, there's something about that doesn't sit well with me.
Then I respect your need to apologize, and I accept.
Yeah. Oh well, we just had a moment.
Yes, we had a moment.
We just said
it was so precious.
It was a precious moment. But I'm doing great. Today's been a pretty fast day. Like I went from doing the consulting stuff to then immediately meeting with a client, and then after that, like I ran here to be on camera and to see all of you. But gifts of recovery. I'm grateful to have all of those things, and I'm tired, and I want dinner after this. But overall, yeah, I'm good. So that's all of us. Okay. So let's talk about social media. So for folks at home, we're talking about social media. So this could be just about anything that is has to do with connecting with other people via some type of device, right? So it could be a dating app. It could be a dating website. It could be a hookup app. It could be a hookup website. It can be a social app or a social website, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Right. And basically anything that comes up for you, experiences with that. And we'll start off the convo. And it looks like Lewis may have some stuff.
Well, what I was going to say with regard to social media, I hear a lot of times folks saying, oh, this is bad, this is whatever. I realize that, you know, everyone has a right to kind of how they feel about it. But for me in particular, I realize that it's how I use it. It's how I focus on it, because there were times where I would obsess over it. Like when I first got onto Clubhouse, not Facebook, I was always on the Facebook or Instagram. Every time there was something new, there was this, especially during the lockdown, there was this app called Clubhouse that was, it was a way to access, and I used it as a way to check out. And I think that like, with everything, not just this, with everything, if you are looking for a way to check out or a way to kind of not stay grounded in reality, these are all things that can be effective. And I think that for me, I had to get some awareness around like, how am I using these, and how am I spending too much time? You know, and I think that it's something that you should always look at, or I should always look at. But it's like, if for me, I found a way to balance it. It has been very kind of effective in staying connected with people that I don't want to have to see every day. And because of a lot of the different things that I do service-wise or whatever, like this, it's been a really effective way of reaching people. Yeah. So that's my take.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I hear that a lot, but I think, yeah, and I like, it kind of takes me to the idea of the toxic aspect of like social media. And for me, it seems like there's been a growing kind of toxicity that is blossoming, just to bring that back, over the last few years. A lot of just like, I think beyond trolling, there's just like really hateful, harmful things being played, and it's kind of feeding into the algorithm that that's what you need more of. And so I know, like in particular, TikTok is one of those that can really, not that I'm bashing them or loving them or whatever, because I love TikTok, but also I feel like sometimes you can get into that cycle of watching this. Like, I feel like TikTok is on like a 10 volume, max volume all the time. So either you're crying your eyes out, or you're laughing your ass off, or you wanting to like blow up the world. You know, it's like there's no just kind of like, oh, cool, this is cute. So I think a lot of social media is kind of getting to that point.
Yeah, I have, I want to have a kind of tempered response to social media. So some background is that I used to do some research in the tech space, and specifically, it was around this thing. It's called motivational UX, and basically, it's the idea of applying different like psychological concepts to getting people to feel motivated to engage with technology, right? And so that by itself is problematic, or it can be problematic, right? Because we know that, and I think you both alluded to this, we know that technology can obviously be used for good, right? I mean, just kind of as an aside, I think when the newspaper came out, I think this is right. When the newspaper came out, people were very crazy about the newspaper. They were like, oh, this is going to like spoil the minds of people, right? So there's always that kind of reaction. Absolutely. And so I think similarly with social media, you know, when it first started to appear, you know, I'm thinking here about like MySpace. I'm thinking about Facebook, the kind of original Facebook. You know, there were the best intentions, and then among all of us, and then I think like, well, humans are going to human, you know, capitalists are going to capitalist, and so there's this way I think that. So personally, y'all both know that my social media presence is it's very minimal. You know what I mean? Like, I think on Instagram I have like maybe a couple things, and I'm working around that, and I have a LinkedIn. But that's been very intentional on my part. And the reason why that's been really intentional is because like I know the science. I know that there's study after study after study that shows that there's a positive correlation between social media use and depression and low self-esteem. And, these are all things that people know already, and now that isn't to say that that's at the exclusion of all the good that can come from social media, but my life has only significantly improved as a result of not being on social media. And that might be because just the kind of person I am. Maybe there are other people, and I think you're probably one of these people, Louis and Bonnie Violet, where you can consume social media and still have like a sense of detachment.
I think we're all experiencing awareness. I think that you are aware of how it affects you. And I think that's, to me, I feel like that's the challenge with a lot of folks, because like, for me, I have had to, like you were reading, there are different things that are on here. I have gotten to the point where I do different things on different sites, like especially like around politics and everything. I have been scrubbing my Facebook. I have been going through like a blocking, whatever, and I started that with like, back then. But I have kind of moved all of that, any controversial talk, whatever, challenging talk, to Twitter. I don't go to Twitter that often, but I realize that way I can kind of corral it into that space. And I realize I get to, if I want to just see butterflies all day, especially with algorithms, I'm just mindful about what I look for on there, or what I like, and which conversations I participate in. I used to have this problem. Like I would get off at 8 o'clock in the morning at this one job I worked graveyard. And that was the worst time for me to go on any social site, because my guard was down completely. And I would always sign on, and 5 minutes later, I'm in an argument.
Yeah.
And then the argument would go on for 3-4 days. Even when I'm not participating, the argument would continue. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I understand. And I think it's admirable, because I know for a fact I'm so deep in it that I can't even imagine not being there. But I existed long, I had a life and was okay long before that,
I have a question for you and Bonnie Violet, and for people listening in. Do you think that you have a sense of autonomy? That is, that there is some agency there, where you are essentially immune to like the involuntary impact of social media, specifically. So for example, you can't help what comes up, right? And the idea behind social media is that it's designed to be consumed, right? TikTok, it was maybe TikTok and Reddit to some degree are the pioneers behind the infinite scroll, right? It's just about consumption and producing data. And so for example, if you see a picture of someone, do you involuntarily compare yourself to someone, or can you help the reaction you might have to, say, like the positive slant that everyone seems to kind of put on social media? So the question is, do you feel immune to kind of the negative impact that social media
I can tell you no. I don't as much as I might think. Like in my opening statement, it's like I really do not believe that I'm immune. I feel as though thanks to what the work that I do in recovery, I get to come to a place where I recognize that I'm showing up in a way that is not healthy, or that it's not healthy, and maybe I need to step away. But I think that if I were not focused on my recovery, I think that this would be a whole different conversation. I think that because I agree with you. It's like early recovery, I worked the same job I was talking about. I worked a swing shift, and I would look at my Facebook, and I would see everybody smiling and having a good time. And I was like, oh my God, they're happy because they're not with me. they're doing these things.
That's such a leap.
No, it was. It's like I'm on, and really, it's like it was the beginning. It was the beginning of me like getting to a place where I'm, oh, wait a minute, you know what? I'm creating these stories or whatever. This is not healthy. I need to put this away,
right?
Because this is not good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I wouldn't say I'm immune to anything, but I would say that, I've social media has changed a lot over the years, and how I've used it has changed. But I think, I think for me, it always comes down to, are the pluses better than the minuses? And is there a way for me to spend more time in the pluses? As a trans person, I think social media is a really great way to kind of beat isolation and to to learn. And like, I talk with other trans people that I've never met in person who can talk with me about my fear of being on the train or how to manage this, that, or the other. And, you know, in like my spiritual work and whatever, like I can connect with people that I wouldn't connect with any other way. And also it comes with a whole lot of extra stuff that makes it really difficult to hear. You know, I probably get called horrible things more often. And I have to deal, you know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of like this balance of, you know, and I think like with anything, I just have to realize that it is a place that is reflective of the world, but it isn't the whole world. And so I think part of it is being able to just kind of like take the good and leave the rest. I know a lot of people on social media, some of the trans people I follow, they only now, like on TikTok, they started out being more out there, then they kind of collected their trans friends, and now they just have trans friends, and then they only share with those people, and then you kind of eliminate having the horrible people come into your thread or whatever. So I think like most things, it's just kind of how you use it.
Yeah.
We had a comment.
Oh, there's a comment. I'm sorry, I see in Brandon. And Jaylon says, I think it's interesting how people are surprised by people who don't have social media, as if not having it is a bad thing or not cool. I personally think it's admirable because I feel those people are actually in tune with reality.
I mean, what are we talking about? Those people
are you talking
Anthony?
About me?
I'm like,
well, I agree. I think I wanted to offer two facts, and I'm interested in, again, what Bonnie Violet and you think about this, and also people at home. But yeah, I'm just gonna say that my life has only been better as a result of not being on social media.
He's better.
I think when people hear that somebody isn't on social media, it's like hearing people who don't drink or use drugs. It's very kind of countercultural. And then oftentimes the reason why you don't is because you've had a negative experience with it or some sort of toxic relationship to it. So I think to some degree it feels like there's warning signs, like, you know, this person might have some issues. They might have secrets. They may have a life that they don't feel comfortable on air. So I think there's a lot of that stuff that kind of comes to mind just because it's foreign to somebody who uses social media, just like it's foreign to think of people not using drugs or alcohol to people who use drugs and alcohol, like it's just what you do.
Yeah, that's really. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's also sometimes, and I'll speak for myself. I personalize it, right? Rather than just seeing it as something that you're doing for you, I see it as you're doing it as an attack on me.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say in response to Bonnie Violet, is that there's a way that I feel like people will give a story to just facts, you know? Mm-hmm. So for example, if you say you don't drink, there might be a story already kind of created, you know? So suddenly you don't drink because you've had problems. Well, for some of us that is true, and for other people it's religious, and for other people they tried it once and they're like, man, not for me. So where's that? So two facts. So first fact. So one of the things like that we know about say hookup apps, right? Hello, Brandon. Sorry, so for context, I only said hello, Brandon, because Lewis looked across the screen and I thought Brandon had gestured. Yeah, we're not incriminating Brandon. No. Brandon's all over so anyway, the point is that so what one of the things that we know about hookup apps, or any apps where there is some type of reward at the end, is that those apps are able to trigger the same kind of dopaminergic surges, or that is, it's able to trigger the same networks in our brain that are associated with gambling, that are associated with feeling good, right? And so that's where the addictive quality can come from, right? So that's just put that in your pocket, folks listening at home. The other thing is that we also know that the internet is sometimes used in an exploitive kind of way to generate revenue. So for example, I won't call out the dating app company, but there was a company, for example, that was sued and lost because it was discovered that they were essentially catfishing and baiting people that were using their services. And the way that they were doing that is like, you'd get a connection, but in order to see this connection, you would have to pay to see that connection, right? And so it was later discovered that those connections weren't real, right?
Yeah.
And so we know that, for example, there are these like unhealthy things that exist when it comes to social media or the consumption of social media. And so I'm wondering, Bonnie Violet, you spoke to this a little bit. I'm wondering, given like your awareness around it, like how is it that people, I guess, mitigate some of the harms, or they go about social media in like a healthier way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the things. If you want to think about, if you're having, I mean, I think you can very much equate it. I always think it's weird to equate social media to like substance use or addiction, but I feel like a lot of the same tactics we use, whether it's harm reductive or abstinence, I think both of those and many of the ways that we can kind of create boundaries, set limits, be specific, be mindful about which ones we're on or which ones we're not on, or when we're on, or how we're feeling before we go on, if we're noticing patterns of when we go on. I think that's really important when thinking about hookup apps in particular, like, what mental state am I in? What spiritual state am I in? Why am I going on this right now in this moment? And so I think with most things, it's just having an awareness and a mindfulness, and a connection with yourself enough to notice when something feels a little off kilter. Because I think when you're doing harm reduction, it's just going to happen. And then abstinence comes with its own limitations and challenges, and probably at times feeling like you're missing out on something in the same way, that you might feel that way when you quit drinking or using.
Right.
I think the only thing I would add to that, it was beautifully said by Bonnie, and I wanted to say hello to your shoulder again. I noticed that.
The Bonnie Violet
Yes,
shoulder
exactly,
is
for those
back.
not watching. I was just going to say, like, when you don't do those things perfectly, because we're not perfect, you get to be gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You get to just, okay, that's it, and I can work on doing better, and that's for abstinence and for the harm reductive side of it.
So a comment just came in. It looks like Brandon. Comment came in. Terry says, I don't even know if I should read this. Bonnie Violet, maybe you should read it.
I'll read it because it's kind of along with the subtitle of today's episode.
Okay.
Terry says, people post their sobriety milestones, but I've been seeing newcomers posting a lot on social media about counting days again. Thoughts?
Mira, controversial.
You know what? Okay, so
Can you keep it up? I just wanted to reread it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I try to mind my own business and not wait in that, but my thoughts, and I'll share them now, is that I almost feel like, for the same reason we focus on anonymity, I think that when you invite, it's like when I start talking about something on social media and it goes out to other people, I don't have ownership of that conversation more, even if it's about me. And people can comment on it, they can say whatever they want, and even if I don't like it. So I feel like it can be kind of dangerous to, if you are someone who is struggling and your self-esteem is tied into it, which in a lot of cases it is, self-esteem and ego. If you put that on there, you have people love you, support you, whatever, and you fall short again and you relapse, and then you have to go on. Yeah. So I think that, like, there are some things that just should not be shared on, unless you are okay with what comes from it.
Yeah.
I was thinking too about less so about anonymity. The first thought I have here is that I make it a point to actually like live my life by being in relationship with other people. And so I make it a point to, like, I know it can be kind of ako taco sometimes, but like calling someone and having a conversation over the phone, or like having coffee with someone. And so I know one of the things that I do is like, I try to keep myself in reality, and that when I happen upon like social media in a way that feels like involuntary, I try to treat that like a two-dimensional picture, like it's just a snapshot, and I can't extrapolate too much from just a snapshot. the other thing I was thinking of is that, like with art, once things go out into social media, that's it. People are going to do whatever the hell they want with that, right? They're going to maybe take a screenshot and bring it up in 5 years when you're running for office, or any number of things, right? And so I think that's something that causes some pause for me. I mean, even when I came to the podcast, I was a little worried about like, oh, is this going to resurface again? And what I've done, how I've resolved this for myself is that, it's important for me that regardless of what I'm doing professionally or personally, that my life is integrated, right? And of course, I wouldn't want to work for an employer or for anyone who's like, well, you know what, you were on that podcast and you said fuck a bunch of times and you talked about anal sex and you talked about all of these issues with queer people and blah, blah. Like, I don't want to work for that person. I think the other thing that I wanted to bring up has to do with some stuff that I read about how social media has impacted specific types of behavior. So one of the things that's been documented in like the last few years is that we found that when people use like see and swipe apps, so like, an app where you see someone and you either say yes or no, or an app where there's like an algorithm and like you get to kind of like see someone and there's like a percentage or whatever. So one of the things that they found is that in these interactions, when people interact, this has actually impacted how people see each other in their daily life. So a lot of times when people go on a date, they're actually in this like evaluative state of mind where they're saying yes or no, as opposed to actually having an experience with someone. Which I think is really interesting. Yeah. It's like one of these subtle ways that technology has impacted like real human relationships.
I always swipe
when you're in person.
I see somebody like,
right.
I mean, it's yeah.
Well, but and I think just to kind of take that a little bit further, and I think like is you can also see how social media behavior is coming out into the daylight as well. So, I mean, I think it's really important when we were talking about like disclosing things on social media and that sort of thing. There is, I think, the anonymity thing to kind of really think about and consider. I think especially like if you're in a 12-step program or something. But I think also like, again, it's kind of the motive. Why am I sharing this? Is it for accountability? And I think it should be probably reflective of how you are with other people in your life. Some of us only tell people that we're in the rooms that we're sober. Others of us have people who know us at work or church or in our family or things like that. And I think social media is just another place of which we can either talk about our recovery well, and we can have good motive about when we talk about it, or bad motive, just like with family and other things. So I think it's important to realize that it is different, but it also is just another space. And I think it would be silly to think that if we were to spend that much time in this world, in the social media world, that it wouldn't somehow, come out in our outside of social media life as well too. Like it just makes sense that we would begin to see things would become more integrated.
Yeah, I agree. I think too, I want to kind of link this back to kind of substance addiction, and in that social media, especially when people find themselves kind of like scrolling for hours, it is serving a purpose, right? And I think I heard that this isn't my original idea, but I heard like years ago someone say like social media has replaced the church in meditation. Right, because there was a time before, if we can go back in 1300s or so, where the church was like the center of the world, right? Religion was the center of your world, and you spend a lot of time in meditation and in prayer, right? And the specifics of that are not important. What I'm trying to get to is that when someone is scrolling indefinitely, they are essentially giving their brain a break. Right? Like if you're under a lot of stress or if you have a lot on your mind, the scrolling or the social media is going to help numb some of that. Right. And so I think that's also something interesting, is that, okay, even if something may feel kind of passive, I think it's important to maybe sometimes ask the question, like, what is this serving? How is this benefiting me, if at all?
But to that point, it's kind of like drugs and alcohol too, because
yeah,
it would be nice if you were scrolling nice, positive things that didn't have a chance to like affect you.
Yeah. I mean, it's even the things I see. We have a comment coming in. Even if like, oh, okay. I'll finish my thought. Even if, for example, like one of the things
Okay, put it back up.
Yeah, Brandon was like, "Nah, yeah, I don't want to read it." Even for example, like one of the things that I caught myself doing is like, this is when I had Instagram, like I think it was like in my 20s, and I remember like if I came across a picture of an attractive guy, I might like like indefinitely scroll through like his thing, and then like noticing like that would then turn into me maybe looking for somebody else's profile, turning into right. And there's this way like I wasn't aware that I was doing that, right? Or it's like it could be something like with cats, like I like funny cat things, and like I just find myself kind of on and on and on. Okay. Jaylon writes, I'm glad you mentioned people being okay with the things that they post, because for so long I would be up in arms about certain posts, wanting to control people's opinions and getting into arguments. And now, as a person in recovery, I've come to the understanding that social media is a place where you can get attention. And also, I've had to tell myself that whatever someone post, they felt it was necessary to do so. I'm not the arbiter of anybody's conduct. Plus, if you don't want to see something,
then you mute it. You mute it, you unfriend, you stop looking,
Yeah, you take a screenshot, you send it to friends and be like, oh, can you believe this?
Right.
I don't know.
I believe that social media has been giving some people like false courage. Well, because it's like
shots fired.
It's like what I've seen. Okay, so and this is where I've had interaction with folks that I know in the rooms, and our interaction in person is different from who they are, how they show up on social media. And what it's done for me is it's changed. Like, number one, I shut down if somebody gives me too much information too soon. Like, I believe that so you give information when it's appropriate. It's kind of like the work that I do with my sponsees. I don't give advice. I just tell stories if they are appropriate. But if I see you sharing about every little thing on, it tells me, it gives me a lot of information, tells me what I need to know. But then these folks that get on and they will read someone to filter, give their opinion or whatever, and then be shocked when someone comes back and tells,
I try to like I ask myself, and a lot of the things that I'm doing is like, what purpose does this serve? Like what purpose does this, like, so late at night, for example, I'll go on YouTube, right? And I'll watch, like, and I'm like, okay, what purpose does this serve? And I'm pretty clear. I'm like, I'm winding down. I just want to go to bed. I don't want to think about anything. One of the things that's been really helpful, and we're getting close to time. I had a conversation with my therapist a couple weeks ago. And I was talking about how when I'm talking to people, I try to be like receptive and I listen, but sometimes I have a really hard time filtering what I should internalize and not internalize. Like being vulnerable and in relationship with other people, I think requires a bit of internalization. And how in the program, a 12-step program, a lot of people will talk about like when you're talking, you should be mindful of like, is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it true? Right. One of the things that's been really helpful for me in listening to other people, and I think maybe this also applies to social media, is like when you're looking at something, is it true? Asking yourself, like, is it true? Is the thought I'm having true? Is the thing that I'm looking at true? Is it helpful? Is this thing advancing my life? Am I better for it? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And probably more importantly, like, is this kind? Indeed. And I didn't come up with that acronym, but it's one that I found that I really like. Go ahead, Bonnie Valley.
I did want to bring something up. I had a friend of mine who is in eating recovery had mentioned, I had shared like a pop star with her that I really liked, who is in eating recovery as well. And then she was talking with me a little bit about kind of like proper ways of kind of talking about like eating disorders or disordered eating, like being online. And so I asked her if she would share with like just some little like thoughts. So I just wanted to share that real quick for folks, because I know we talk a lot about substances, but so she says, at the end of the day, eating disorders in recovery aren't about food or weight. It's about things like control, self-worth, self-harm, OCD, acceptance, love, peace. The goal of of ED recovery for many is peace with food and their body. Constant comments or posts about exercise, weight, food, etc. don't match with that principle. So things to avoid on social media to be respectful of others who may be in ED recovery. So I think these are things we can think as people who might not be in that, of how we can be mindful with our posts. So emphasis on foods you're eating, cooking, etc. could look like emphasis on food. Posting anything numbers related is pretty faux pas, including the size of your clothes, the weight you used to be, the weight you are now, how much you weigh, how much your weight has changed. Is it really recovery if you're needing to assign numbers to your recovery? Calories, never talk calories. Videos of exercising, is that really healthy to feel the need to share? Specific numbers also misrepresent to society what an ED does look like. So folks who, it kind of tells us you have to be a certain way in order to have an eating disorder. Easy to think, this person I know doesn't weigh that much, little, eat that much, little, work out that much. Therefore, they must not have an ED, which risks invalidating very ill individuals. Focus on the soul, not on specifics, but if nothing else, no calories, LOL. I know that was a little long, but I wanted to share it.
I'm really grateful. Thank you to your friend who took the time to send that. Yeah,
and I think it's...
Go ahead.
I think it kind of speaks to a lot of like any recovery and kind of again, checking the motives, but also being mindful like we do in the rooms or everywhere else. How would other people in the room respond to what I'm saying right now? Sometimes we need to say shit regardless of what other people are going to say, but we have to check our, I think the big thing is just checking our motives, and I think seeing how we can be more mindful to the people around us.
Absolutely. And it makes me think that maybe we should have, at least on our podcast, we should have more conversations about process addictions. I know technology addiction is a big one. It's like with gaming for a lot of people, for example, or sex and love addiction, which, I've talked about kind of casually here and there. But for folks listening in, if you're in a 12-step program or in type of any kind of recovery program around either eating or sex or gambling or just about anything, let us know, and we'd love to hear from you. We'd like to have that conversation so that other people can also hear from you. So it's about that time. Brandon just threw up the number 3. So it's time for us to wrap up.
Exactly. The Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
Our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community, opportunity, and support. You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and tune in every Tuesday at 4 p.m.-ish Pacific Standard Time when we go live on our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
And find us wherever you listen to podcasts at the CCC.
And
if you all want to reach out to me, wasn't on the script, but if you want to reach out to me, since I won't be on here any longer, you can always find me at aqueerchaplain.org or a queer chaplain on all that nasty old social media.
And we won't be here next week.
We won't. We will be in Honolulu at the Aloha Roundup. If you haven't registered and you're interested, check out the Aloha Roundup. It'll be in Honolulu.
I think we know somebody who's sharing the first night. Huh?
So I'm the Friday evening. I'm one of the Friday evening speakers. You know, when I hear something crazy about that, I haven't shared that with anyone because I'm convinced that if people from San Francisco know that I'm sharing Friday evening, they're going to cancel their tickets, which is crazy. Like an entire city. Well, it's just because people. I know.
They might just go somewhere different that night. Yeah, I don't think they'll cancel the whole trip.
They're like, we heard this, Queen.
Thank you, Anka.
Yeah, Anka, thank you so much. She sent me a text and she said, "I'll have coffee with you anytime." You're so sweet, Anka.
I know Anka's amazing.
But yeah, we'll be in Honolulu, supporting our friends over at the Aloha Roundup. If you've got time and you want to check it out, it's a wonderful fellowship. The people there are absolutely amazing. Really nice recovery. And the other thing I want to just remind people of, so we if you're just listening for the first time, we continue on the conversation for 15 minutes after we get off air. But that is podcast exclusive, so we don't stream that part. So if you're interested, check us out wherever you listen to podcasts.
Absolutely.
And we love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.